Why are you silent, my faithful ass? Think. Help me. Come, chord me janne shikar kene. Kharra maga. Continuing The Enchanted Prince by Leonid Solovyov, Chapter 3. Since those memorable conversations, Yadgar Guftgu ki shud bain yazardu, Khoja Nasreddin no longer dropped any money into the old mendicant's cup, but always took with him from home a fresh barley cake wrapped up in a bit of a clean linen. The mendicant expressed his gratitude as before by a silent nod. Silent nod, sir. He is not allowed to speak for 363 days out of 365. And a glance full of hope. Soon now, soon, bakhair bazudi, answered Khoja Nasreddin. When it grows warm in the mountains and the roads are dry, I shall set forth to look for the lake. Welcome, Garmsuna. Ma burmus maspazi. Band bugim diya. Lake a band bugim na. The sky grew ever clearer, loftier and bluer, ever less overcast. At noon one could sit in the sun without one's robe on, stirred by the advent of spring. Garmshda, astestedarau. Adam mitne bidin kudam patumatu, zera aftar bishna glas garm shna. Amter malum masha asari bahar. Khoja Nasreddin had grown thinner. Kam lagarshda. His eyes shone with the keen sparkle of youth. Bazam jwaniyash de achamdat. And his sleep those days was light and fitful. Another week passed over him. One night, troubled by sleeplessness, Khoja Nasreddin went forth into his little garden and stood there in a transport of delight. The earth was floating in a pale blue haze, and the dark, limpid air above it throbbed and hummed with the challenging calls of the flying geese and the whirs of ducks' wings. The birds of passage were flying north. चीज़ बाहर के मशा इना सुन शमाल रही मशा नॉर्थ रमेगना magnetic flora follow मना और दम exactly दम जाए खता मशा कि सदा हज़ारा साल बाकुलो इसे में कारण जान दादा. The birds of passage, any migrating birds मगा. The birds of passage were flying north, onward, offering burin खजना दरो मगिया दरो मला खोजा. Trumpeted the geese as they marshaled their caravans high up in the sky under the very stars. Hurry, hurry, answered the fussy ducks, rushing halter-skelter from all sides in flocks. Ya the jamgataraya, in pairs, ya jora, and singly, ya thana. And almost grazing the treetops in their wild haste. The wind soared in the garden, shaking down a rain of white petals. ki burshda munara darum mebenek tit kedereya. And the brimming spring freshets sang in the ariqs. In the stable, the foal neighed restively and joyfully and struck the earthen floor with his hoof with a hollow sound. Yag she asp zin khud zmin mizdameter awaz media awaz unjmaya. Khoja Nasreddin stood thus. Yani mitresta yani manzara shudare gedwarch haywanata taro bedar shudare. For a long time, lost in contemplation of the great stir and bustle upon the heavenly highways. التغييرات درو من قرنا كموسم تدبيل شو دري برنداد درو بدار شو دري طبيعة خلاصة بدار شو دري ويرا خوجة نصر الدين أمو وقت حاضر موجود. Daybreak يعني daybreak أمو تمكي شيء أمور چیز مگا طلوع مگا نا وقتی سورج طلوع مشا daybreak مشا يعني open مشا day. Daybreak found him in the ass's stall. لما ساري صبح يبي دا چیز مگا وہ جاي خرور کے بستانا استبل خبري أصبايا نا خر دوجا بستانا کوٹے خرو کودلی خرو. Grieve not. غم نکیده تای. The days of our sorrow are ended. بچه نالی که استردیم ریمشی. بیغم باش. Said he, embracing his long-eared friend. Long-eared friend. لمبه بالوں والی دوست. مخارج رمگا. Embracing his بغل منورا. His long-eared friend around the neck. فکر نکو ریمش اردیم نالی چکر. A week hence we shall be far away from here. Upon the high roads in the noisy bazaars. But what about Guljan? Shall I tell her all? Reveal to her the whole truth. But you know how perverse she is. If she were to suddenly drown in the river, which Allah forbid, I would go to seek her body upstream and not downstream. ما سپس برم شم طرفی که دریا که نمایم اون طرف دو طرف مورم نه که اون طرف که مورد رو. He pondered. باز د فکر افتاد. A number of ideas shot through his mind like darts of lightning. شو 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 چند خیالات آمد. نه اینی تکنی ای پال اینی چال میچلانه. But he rejected them all. One after the other. فکر کردم گفت نه این نمیچله. دیگهش نه این نمیچله. Have I become altogether foolish? Why are you silent, my faithful ass? Think, help me. The ass responded with a sigh and belly rumble. At that moment, a transparent roseate beam of sunrise slipped into the stall through a chink in the door and awoke an answering gleam in the eyes of Khoja Nasreddin. Am waqt ki umtar mana bas yak dana azmani amzu chagi darga awalna nur maya zabita damane kuduli kharo yak dafa qad azu nur yak khayalam da Nasreddin mirsa. To be sure, he exclaimed, if I cannot go away from my family, then why cannot my family go away from me? Upon returning from the bazaar that day, he said to his wife, Mora bazaar kar khalas na sida maya Guljan, I met a man from Bukhara today. who is well acquainted with your father, old Niyaz. And Wali Niyaz Babetia, he quitted Bukhara 2 months ago and is now returning whither with a passing caravan. He said that your father is well and suffers no privations, but feels very lonely. What a pity that Bukhara is banned to me. And that we cannot pay him a visit. Guljan returned him no answer. Nasreddin regarded her with a sad and kindly smile. Who could have recognized his Guljan of old in this fat, loud-voiced woman with the red face? But Khoja Nasreddin had the gift of second vision. यानी हमेशा एक चीज़ की मशकूक मुशूद या ख्याल बाज की वेमत दोबारा गौर मकत and could, when he so desired, look at his beloved wife with the eyes of his heart and behold her as she used to be. लेकिन उन नज़र के बरे गुलजान दरा हर कार शुदा और खैरा लेकिन ये हमेशा और कदम ज़ू नज़र से लना के अवल ना तफसील के दर. Oh my gentle dove, forgive me this deceit. He mentally exclaimed, the figure, but we know only too well how perverse you are. Now tell me in all conscience, could I have acted otherwise? The next day, he resumed the conversation about the man from Bukhara. I wanted to invite him home. But the caravan had already departed to Bukhara. He said at dinner, gazing at the wall to avoid Guljan's eyes. For he had really met no man from Bukhara, either yesterday or today, and had invented it all from beginning to end. In a week's time, they will be in Bukhara, he said wistfully. They will enter the city through the southern gates. The detail of Mora, Gati Junubi, which can be seen from the roof of your house. I should not wonder if old Niyaz beholds that caravan from his roof. Anon the man from Bukhara will tell him about us. Tell him that we are well and lived in Khoja. Which is but a journey of 1 week from Bukhara. Bukhara. And he will further tell Niyaz that Allah has blessed him with 7 grandsons. And all of them love their grandfather. Although they have never seen him. Guljan sighed, and a tear hung upon her eyelashes. Khoja Nasreddin perceived that the clay of her heart had been softened. وقلوق دل زيال كم جيل جدا فاهمين كم outage ده بليش. And the time had come to set the potter's wheel of his cunning into motion and shape the earthen vessel of his design. مثل زو كوزاجر اللي من البايشرو كانوا كوزار جور كانوا مطابق مرزيخو فقد دور بيدينا لي. In very sooth, the old man ought to be shown his grandsons, said he with a note of sadness in his voice. May Allah afflict the robber Amir with blindness. Khuda ye Amiri duzra khor kanai. And festering boils were dana biznaira tamam shira. Through him, I dare not show myself in Bukhara. Kis khatir azu, mada Bukhara pabandi lagi da bacha. No entry. Howbeit, that ban applies to me alone, and there is naught to prevent you and the children from repairing thence. Ban within the period of a week, you would be embracing the old man. What a pity we have no money for the journey. How so? Retorted Guljan. Chtor rupinia? And what of the purse with 800 tangas lying in the chest? Ashsad tanga ki mane zu khalte diga kita mane peti ban ke de uch rakam. Khoja Nasreddin had only been waiting for her to mention the purse. Kina liga paisar today? The rest of the conversation followed a set pattern. Gaus paisa ke dafa ma dazana zu bazu dige shu mu fahma kinale stor dastana dige jor kedani. He was all too familiar with, just as a shoals is familiar to the boatman who was born upon it. Amara far kishtir ki mubra maira ya ki mai migra stor az chiza mu fahmana unmur kham fahmidat. He steered his craft boldly. Inali kishti khora rawan kar. Khoja. Nay, he cried, that money must not be touched. Urupir this name is dito. We need it for the house. I have allotted it already. Oh, have you? To confirm the dangerous sandbank was drawing nigh. The ominous rumble of the vortex could distinctly be heard in his wife's voice. Another stroke of the oar sent his boat shooting out into midstream, away from the quiet pools and creeks. Injidro istara istamal lakinal kishtiezi biduni kudam chiz zabita diganali rawana the main aw al khalash the janjala. First of all, a good water hole has to be dug in the garden and lined with stone slabs so that our children may have a place to bathe in during hot weather. But isn't that talab jurkani? You are quite right, said Guljan. How can we do without a pool when the river flows hard by our garden? Only 10 paces away. As for lining it, we could have it done with marble. Ali chirkhami tafsil mona tabir mona, the boat was rushing headlong towards the rapids. And Ali kishti Nasreddin kaise full the mane awam da bache full the tasalli rahi hai chunki Guljan khud shuru da, whose seething waters capped by white foam could be described in the near distance. The pool will cost 200 tangas, Khoja Nasreddin said. Utalab the dusat tanga jorum shabache. Whose, Khoja Nasreddin said, turning down 2 fingers. Furthermore, I think of building an arbor in the garden, and decorating it inside with carpets. The carpenters say that this will cost another 200. And we shall have to pay a like sum for the carpets. That makes 600, said Guljan. There will be 200 left then. يقصد 600 total خرچه خانه هم جور شد چام لگید فهمیدی طالب هم جور شد. We shall have need of that too. Umda kara, Khoja Nasreddin said hastily. I wish to make a carved walnut gate. خوبم زو سه چوب من میخوایم گیری زور جور کنم باغنا. In place of the plain one of boards which we have now. ये दरवाज़ा नहीं कोई बात शक्ल ना थाम ऊपर खूब सेम तो असली चोब वाल नक्शकारी करनी मिलेश ये दूसरी तरफ दजी I shall call in craftsmen to decorate our house with blue flowers within and without. बस मायम नफरार मायरम की तो ब्रो में तो blue flower बाशा तो द्रोने खाना हमार तरफ blue flower. The blue flowers were a sudden inspiration. एक दफ़े की दया चमात, and the words were out of his mouth before he knew it. Why without? Within the move I mean the brochure to Gulkishni, said Guljan. For beauty's sake, ho malum sunana, kyari meri the bro khana bilega. For beauty's sake, Khoja Nasreddin explained. Suddenly the oar broke in twain, the boat struck the rocks and capsized. The conversation, family daraf dego, ko pasaw shud. And locked the Hussain. Khoja Nasreddin was caught up in the eddy and whirled away. There were screams and tears till late in the evening. Azabat khaykashak bata bada zor ardish. There is no money for visiting a poor, lonely old man, but there is money for decorating your house with blue flowers, cried Guljan. Kho, the blue flowers khub rupi dere. Ek nafar unji baatez ma khub ek gharib anu unji banwa dech kasni. Chan mash shirna didem. And why decorate it without? All the same, the first rain will wash off all your silly decorations. मावलना बारान क्यों ना बस भी में डेकोरेशन है तो चीज़ रखा मुझे पैसा खूब मुफ्त खर्च नहीं तो हाँ Khoja Nasreddin held his peace, calm. For 2 days he stood bareheaded, sarluj, under the pouring rain of her. तो अंदाज़ा को कि बारान है गुलजान मना दरो इम सरलुद तेजस है. इंजी इस्तेआरा इस्तेमाल मुशदर हो ये रमगा metaphor आर्दिश में बड़ी information चुम metaphor यानी ये गबी तो मुगी क्यों देशारा गब मिज़नी इंज दरो मुगा Khoja Nasreddin held his peace मतलब खार खौरना उड़. For 2 days he stood bareheaded बगैर कुछ protection under the pouring rain बारान बारिशी of her reproaches. And on the 3rd day a covered arba appeared before the gate. Flushed with victory, Guljan rode forth to her father in Bukhara with all his children. Didim ki duimna roz bhai ek dana cheez amad, sawari amad, Guljan load, bacha load, Khudafiz, bye now. Enitar dastan ra, Khoja Nasreddin, the conclusion lesson. Be careful on the bridges and downhill. Sartaushik shudin bele pul mulam khayal chimbasha kho. Khoja Nasreddin admonished the driver. Do not drive your horse at a gallop. Aste morize ustoy matanavra. Made drowsy by the heat and the driver sat dozing sweetly. Alur gufta de ki tu tund raftani nahi. Aste bor. All the zoo garmi di gayi. Nafari zeri araksh dakho. He skewbald mare stood dozing too. His skewbald mare khacharazu. Kalch to takriban. Takriban the isabi khawrafta ho, leaning her weight upon one hind leg. Yak forelegger, yak hind, like behind, H-I-N-D, hind legs. بل يزود پای خزورز دم تقریبا خاو کده دیگه. خچرم ده خورفته. Khoja Nasreddin's admonitions were quite needless, for it was many a long years since the venerable pair had done any galloping. او هرچی میگفت تو خیرا توست زرانه او تا رفتید نمیتونه بچاره گودودن پیر خچر روی بری و قاموت را مستی رفتنیه. After spreading some soft rice straw upon the floor of the araba and covering it with a traveling rug, awal kaawarna kho taizu banezu gadi baz ek qalina warna. Khoja Nasreddin began to carry out from the house a variety of bundles, baskets. Ye tukri kho ye bistare vachaya ye khalte nana. Nasreddin began to carry out from the house a variety of bundles, baskets and bags. At length, akhirshi, Guljan passed through the gate. Her 7 children, all of them sons, coming after her in the order of their size. The driver shook himself, braced up his feet against the shaft and gave a flourish of his whip by way of demonstrating his preparedness, then relapsed into his former state of nodding drowsiness. He knew by experience that he had a long time to wait ere he would be told. تا وقت ای خبر داره که تسامان بایلو تا خدا فزیک خدار مال مشخصه و تجربه داره و خبر داره دیگه. امیتر چمقی خرم تر من هی باز امیتر قرار امیتر چل بس کی میشنه. خبر داشت که نال چکار میشه؟ Great Allah above us, let us start. تا نام خدا دیگه. بسم الله کن دیگه. تا که امیر نشنده و خبر که رای نمیشه دیگه. امیر که میشنوه. As for the mare, she did not even wake up, but merely changed her foot and rested now upon the right side. خبر داشت که رای چندان رای نی قرار پای خبر بدلی کردم میتر بالانس را پاس دخاو. Khoja Nasreddin helped his wife to climb into the arba, which she did by stepping on the wheel spokes. Then he handed up to her all their sons. Yag the dishted man, yes, do you say, Tamam Shirshan man gadi? Upon each of whom he bestowed at parting a resounding kiss. And Ziola, Ochema, Idimshi, Samshi Borba Khair. There was thus built up in the Araba a many-armed, motley-headed tangle of squalling and wailing young humanity. In al-Bufa Mindigaf, then a young humanity is there, but I think we'll just like a basha. In the midst of which, like a mother hen over her brood, misli sat Guljan. The Markaz is looking worried and somewhat sad. زيد خوش نية ديجا. من بشتا. بس بشي. Oh dear husband of mine, Shawhari Aziz, will you remember all my instructions? أرجع قلتم ده تاستا. I will. O rose of my heart. Qandim gulabim arech tur deyadim niya. First, I am to take the cooking pot degar burdanim to the coppersmith. Pesh deg saz. To be mended. Ki kam kharaf shda murjor kedanim degra yak misgar. Secondly, I am to have the chimney cleaned. By dudkasha saf kedanim. Bukhari. I am to pay the butcher, qasabra paisesh dedanim, our debt of 16 tangas. Shozda rupiya zumsha. And forget not the garden wall, said Guljan, pointing to a large gap in the adobe fence near the wicket. Forget not to mend the wall. Deval maidaya, ziyatunara deval jorku. I shall take it in hand this very day. In roz dis bakar mashum. Chort nazan. As soon as I have seen you safely on your way. Take the bakhar reishu. Tarry not too long. Ziyad matal na ki diga. Tarry not too long. In Bukhara. Ziyad do Bukhara mandani nin. O light of my eyes. Rai roshni chimaima. To der the Bukhara gum nashnin diga. Pas bain. We shall return in exactly 3 months. The leave-taking began all over again with embraces and kisses. Baz bagal kishi, baz macho, Khuda Hafiz, Khuda Hafiz. Squeals and wails, Baba Khuda Hafiz. Khoja Nasreddin could not remember in the turmoil. Bikhi dazi sarasimigi aziyat rafta. Which of the children he had kissed twice and which not at all. یک دنیش خودت ماچو کدومی یک چند دنیش بیخی منده اید ماچو نکدوم ایران شده کدام شو منده. So he began to kiss them once more for the 10th time. داوم دفعه بسام از لاین باز ماچو کده تمام از ناره. The sun now stood high in the sky. آفتاب برش ده دیگه proper. The faint shadows of morning had given place to the short, sharp ones of day. The driver was now wide awake. Driver the ready. The mare had had a good sleep. It was time to start out. Great is Allah above us. Let us start. Khoja Nasreddin said with a tremor in his voice. Yalla wa khair. Great is Allah, answered the driver, and the arba, swaying and creaking, moved off with a slow roll of its great wheels. Payada chakaramat. Ye gadi, asb gadi ravan shud. Khoja Nasreddin walked behind it. And peda pas gadi mora daro. They passed the corner of the street, past the familiar poplar, which had already thrown out leaves and hung over the roadway like a light green cloudlet. They passed the bazaar square. The city gates were not far off. Yeah, remember, these times the cities have gates. Guljan said to her husband, if you are going to see us off all the way to Bukhara, you had better get in on with me. He acknowledged the jest with a smile, stopped the arba and kissed the whole family again. For the last time, from Guljan down to the little ones. He stood in the roadway for a long time thereafter, gazing at the departing wagon. At last it was hidden from view behind a bend in the road. Creaking was silenced, and he was left alone. Pensive and sad, he returned home and bethought him of the words of Ibn Hazm. Kam dil shimtir ramgina diga khana khalish da dide zusto tamam rafta. Was the fikri Ibn Hazm de kalam shmaya? At parting, there you go, alvida. The one who remains behind takes 3/4 of the sorrow. देख अलविदा देख खुदाफजी अमु की मुमना उ से चारों में गमरा ताबिल चमशा उ की रही या गमरा मोबरा या हिस्सा मोबरा उ की मुमना उ से गमरा गिरंगी चबलेजी मुमना ना वो गमगीन रही है लेकिन बड़े एक चीज़ हम रही है ना, एक उम्मीद ऐसे खातिर गम मज़ू कमा हाँ. While the one who departs take only one quarter. The little yard greeted him with sunny quiet. Auli Roshana Aftabia Magar khamosh hai amroz. Zosto taza rafta bhi kas nahi hai bola uli. There was not a sound save the lone cry of an oriole in the garden. Yek sadai parinda maya. Khoja Nasreddin had never heard it before owing to the perpetual clamor and bustle of the children. Magar ye parinda buda dein jaisi bagh. Chun zosto zyada na awed namishrinda buda ki parinda masta deinji. Magar wo tum buda inji. Without entering the deserted house, he directed his steps towards the shed, opened the door slightly and gave a low whistle. The darkness responded with silence. Manezu tariki but ajawaz namam. He whistled a second time. Bas shplagzat. From within came the mingled sounds of deep sighing, wheezing and shuffling. And the ass came forth. As tariki khar bro bromsha. Fat, sleepy and sullen, unused to the sun and blinking discontentedly in its brilliant light. He lifted up his ears and looked round perplexedly, as it were. أول خو چمایش کار نمیداد از منی ترکیبش داره بس که سهن مایا یک دفعه متحیران مشه میترم ترسیل منه. Wherefore are you surprised? Said Khoja Nasreddin. تو چرا حیران شده؟ That it is so quiet around. کی چرا قص خاموشیه؟ They've all gone to Bukhara to visit old Niaz, and you and I are now as free as birds of the air. ونام go Bukhara رأي كده منارة. In almost free بچه full. To collect his saddlebags. Saddlebags يعني؟ Saddlebags. چیز ما که بلی خر آوارنه. خورجینا saddlebags. To collect his saddlebags and saddle the ass was for Khoja Nasreddin matter of minutes. The minutes amaza khorjina est zina bastakat kharra. Oh ho, you have grown as fat as a Hisar ram. Yago bare Hisar. Yago jayasta gut mis zur chaq shde bacheshto. He said, tightening the girth. But within a week, I swear, you will be as lean as a greyhound. مثل مستاقي خوب تيز دوجن لبالنا مثل مستاقي تازي اللي تو بلغار خارج دي على خوب مثل ميش اللي بندده. We have much to do. كار زيادة, faithful comrade, my dear Rafiq, and very little time to do it in. Time come مقابلة سخطة. Forward, the long road is waiting for us. Wait kibori bhai. He hung a big brass padlock on the house door, barred the gate from inside with 2 thick poles, and not bothering in the least about the safety of his property, rode out through the gap in his fence. And this is the end of chapter 3. He is now left for the journey. Where is he left? Khoja left? Ali wasal duty bachesh. Sema Guljan gufta the sema post mai. The same project by khalas kar.